Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We may go into closed session during this meeting. If so, I will cite the subsection of the same code. Join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mrs. Carruthers, I show everyone present. Okay. First order of business is item number 4 there. Don't have any proclamations, so is the board reorganization. So to start that, I will step down, and Mr. Clark, you'll take over as president for the nominations for president.
That's all right. Can I do it from here? It's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
At this point in time, I'll open the floor for nominations for president of the school board.
I'd like to nominate John Hunt.
Nomination for John Hunt. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Second by Ms. Carruthers. Are there any further nominations for president of the school board?
I'd like to nominate John Clark.
Craig's problem. Because I'm administrator, I think technically I probably would have to decline in that position since I'm currently operating as the officer of this issue. So would you like to withdraw that nomination?
Yes.
All right. Are there any further nominations from the board as the president of the school board? And I'll close the nomination process for president of the school board and call for a vote on the motion before the floor, which is the motion for John Hunt to be president of the school board. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Any abstaining? Hearing none. Motion carries. John Hunt is selected as president of the Kennedale ISD school board for school year 2019 through 2020.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, the floor is now open for nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate John Clark.
A nomination for John Clark. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay, we'll stand for a vote. All those in favor for John Clark as vice president, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I abstain.
Thank you, John. Floor is now open for nominations for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Leslie Carruthers for secretary.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is correspondence.
This piece of correspondence came in today. It is from the city. It's about a public hearing that will be held on June 20th at 7 p.m. About a piece of property on Linda Road and Gale Drive, where they are considering a company is considering buying the property and call it Compressed Air Systems LLC. And this hearing is about tax abatements from the city. I believe we will be at SLI, but if we know people that want to be there and represent the district, we may want to send somebody to find out what they're proposing.
We don't need to take it.
I gave you the correspondence, the proposal. It's a draft proposal for your review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Correspondence, that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Got one person signed up, Mr. DeSilla. State your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is John DeSilva. I live at 311 Autumnwood Court. It is a community resident in Winding Creek Estates. I'm here tonight to address a stormwater runoff issue at Kennedale Junior High. This has been an issue going on for years. I've lived in my house since 2014. Back then, we addressed the issue with the city, and essentially what's happening is runoff from the junior high is being diverted into a field, which then dumps into our community and basically floods our yards. I do have video here on a thumb drive. I don't know if there's a way for you guys to see that. So you can see the magnitude of water. We're not talking a little bit of water. We're talking about a lot of water. So back when I first dealt with the city, I sat down with the Public Works manager. They called in an engineer. Sat down. They come up with a temporary plan where basically they dug a ditch that ran the length, the field, dump it down to the track. That was kind of a fix, not really a fix. The issue still occurs. The ditch has created more issues because it's eroded where they dump off. It's eroded more and now has created another path for water to divert into our yards. So, I mean, really, is there a way for me to show this video so you guys can kind of see this? There's no way. I mean, I see you guys have a projector here. Is there?
That wouldn't be proper in public comments. No.
So how do I go about letting you guys
You
see
just need to
this?
submit that to the district and take it to our facilities.
How do I submit that to the district?
You can go up to the administration office from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night and turn that in to the facilities director with a
Okay.
letter describing your complaint and what the issue is.
Okay, well, since this issue, I brought it up again. I've gone to the city council at their last board meeting. They've said they are under the impression that the school district is responsible for this and that the school district needs to deal with this. Chad, I spoke with you, week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, in which case you kind of basically told me that not your problem, not going to spend school money to fix a problem that's not your responsibility.
Not necessarily the way it was said, but the,
You did say it was not your responsibility, right? And you're not going to spend taxpayer money fixing the issue that's not your responsibility. That's what you said. So since that conversation obviously didn't go very well, I've since then talked to the city manager, who was a little taken back by my conversation with Chad. Coming from him, he was under the impression that the school board was aware of it and that they were working on a fix. That's also the response I got from the mayor. The mayor told me he spoke to a member of the school board. I do not know who that might have been, but one of you told the mayor that you all are aware of this problem and that y'all were working on a solution. So I'm here tonight to try to get something going because it's costing myself, my neighbors, lots of money. Anytime it rains, our yards are destroyed. We've spent thousands of dollars trying to put in drainage that kind of helps, but not really. So I'm here tonight to kind of see if we can maybe get something
Did you
arranged.
contact your developer?
No.
Wouldn't it be their responsibility when they plat the property to assess the drainage of the property?
Well, I mean, if you're asking that, I mean, the city would have approved.
Well, I'm just saying, we haven't done any construction at the junior high, so I'm trying to see what we would have changed.
Well, I don't know what you would. I mean, you dug the ditch initially, which then which created more problems.
Okay.
So you have done that. So I mean, I think there is an easy solution.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Okay.
a huge problem.
Well, make sure you get that to facilities and let us look at it in detail.
Okay. So can I have maybe like an idea of a time frame on when we can, I don't know, have a meeting, something?
You can have a meeting with Mark. You just need to make an appointment and sit down and schedule with him, and he would be the person who would determine how that would be fixed and what the district would do for it. So,
Okay.
that would just be a matter of.
Can I ask the question, has anybody talked to the mayor on this? The mayor has informed me that he spoke with a member of the school board, so I'm just curious if,
I spoke with him. He
Okay.
asked me and informed me of the situation, and, first question I asked is, how long has the development been there? I went through a series of questions trying to understand the issue.
Okay.
I think the junior high was there, the development came in, and my questions to him were about, where was this going? When the development came in, what was the topography at that point in time? Had it changed? And his response was, I don't think so. I think everything is the same as it was. So we had a conversation about whose responsibility would it be if it was if the water was running across that property originally and you developed it. I asked him who changed it. And again, normally from my experience in the city, the developer would be responsible for ensuring that the water that was normally crossing the property is addressed. And he was going to check on it from his perspective. And I did relay it up the chain of command and ours.
Okay, so I need to submit this at the administration office?
Well, yeah, just to our facilities, get it to our facilities person with a, write out your description of what's happened and the chain of events and the timing of, your property and the ditch you referenced and those kind of things. And then we can get him to kick it up and get it on our agenda to discuss it formally, because we can't take any action, obviously, now during public comments.
I guess my question is, I mean, obviously, us as the public can't do anything to the school property. So, I mean, if the school land is eroding and dumping onto our property, I mean, how I don't understand how the developer is responsible for fixing something that's on your land.
I don't know where the erosion is happening, and so I can't comment on that.
Okay, well, I'll submit this to the admission and hopefully we can get
We
somewhere.
appreciate it. Thank you for coming and telling us. Okay. Public comments. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Has there been any calls on the consent agenda?
No.
All items underneath this heading can be approved with one motion.
I make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, there's consent agenda. Item A, under new business, is FDA local. This policy revision will allow a resident student who has attended Kennedale ISD since kindergarten and becomes a non-resident anytime within grades 9 through 12 an opportunity to be granted admission by filling out a district application for enrollment with the superintendent. The transfer shall be granted admission for 1 year, subject to an annual review. This is a change from the senior exemption was all we had, but we're trying to take into account that with housing prices, there have been a few juniors, I think is the case we were having, or sophomore and a junior, that had to move nearby but weren't in the district any longer. And this would be on a case-by-case approved by the superintendent. So
They would also be subject to the establishment of the tuition rates. They would pay the same tuition rates that seniors would have to pay. So this is just a continuation of that. It's just extending it. We have some students who are very involved in the district, parents who've been very involved, but as John said, the housing situation is causing them to look somewhere else. And so, these kids have been part of the district for a long time, and they're, well involved in the district, and they'd like to stay involved in the district. And this just allows them that opportunity to do so.
And if they become a discipline problem or any of that kind of
Attendance
stuff?
problem, discipline, that's where it says they have to fill out the application, and then at the end of that, they're subject to the review like all other, the senior.
you should see the amendation to the policy on the attachment in blue.
Do we have any concerns about how we deal with issues where there are requests for transfers in? They're not within the exception, we're talking about 1 year, now you're talking about perhaps 4 years. Someone coming in as an eighth grader said, I want to pay the tuition and be here for 4 years. Do we have any concerns?
That's why we said from kindergarten, they have to show a record where they have been in the district from their entire career. So it's not just somebody comes in the 7th grade or 8th grade and then moves and then wants to stay. This is someone who's been involved in the district for their entire educational career.
I just want to make sure that we don't have any arguments against us, that we're not being consistent or fair. If someone says, I want to be here, I live in the same neighborhood, I'd like to pay the tuition rate, and the only difference is that he has a history, but his residence is still outside. So I just want to make sure that we're aware that you're likely to get somebody asking a question about it. And
We're not open enrollment. That's not the purpose. This is just we allow it for seniors. This is just allowing it for students during their high school career to be able to stay once they have established that they've been here their entire educational career.
Are there any UIL issues?
No.
Transfers.
It's a transfer student.
So they would still be eligible for all sports and everything else?
Well, that's part of the thing. Like the young man whose parent reached out to me, he's been involved in band since 6th grade, and he's an officer in band and all those things. And if they move, he's going to have to go to another school district, and reestablish himself there. So,
No transportation issues, anything like that?
we do not
Move, transport, yeah.
transport
put it out there, Nate.
transfers. No, we do not.
And this just gives the administration the discretion. So, any further discussion?
No discussion, I'd make a motion to, move the board revise the FDA local as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good. Let's go ahead and jump down to item E, superintendent's report, and move through that item E.
You have the campus reports. The principals are at their summer conferences. We also have some that have some health, medical complications that are keeping them from being here tonight. So the principals are absent, but your reports have been submitted to you for your review. We'll move into the dress code.
Yeah.
Are there any questions
Is
or
there any
anything?
questions on the campus reports? Item 2.
Does that include dress code, that's separate?
Do I know?
That's,
Dress code separate in the superintendent's report?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's part of the, no, it's
It's
part of.
item
the
number 2,
report.
under E. 2E, E2.
Get on the right thing here. You were sent information from the community forums, from the meetings with staff, surveys from the principals to their staffs, and from meetings with the student groups that I met with. All their concerns that was revolved around where dress code was involved in that part of the discussion. So you have that information that was sent to you. There should have been another supplemental item that was sent to you that showed the current dress code and the proposed principals' recommendations for the handbook that we will vote on in July. What you have before you, the sheets with the highlighted areas and scratched out, are basically the changes to that. If it is highlighted, that is to be removed in yellow. If it's red, it's to be added. Okay. What I've asked the principals to do with their recommendations is to look at the surveys, to look at the discipline concerns that revolve around the dress code, and then to make their recommendations based off of this and what they feel like would be a better, consistent, and equitable dress code that would be more easily understood, consistent, and simplified. And that was what I tasked them with doing. Like I said, that is for your review, and if there's any discussion, Leslie had brought up a couple of questions to me that I'd addressed to her. One was that jeans, she had asked if jeans would be allowed all the time. Yes, under this plan it would be. She asked if the spirit shirts would be allowed all the time. Yes, it would be under this proposal. And that's one of the biggest things that I've heard from students is that we have all these spirit shirts and we're only allowed to wear them one day a week. And being able to wear spirit shirts, as long as it's a spirit shirt, what day of the week does it hurt that we wear and we have games and stuff on other days of the week as well.
I think that would make a lot of this is so much, but knowing they can wear jeans and a spirit shirt any day of the week is something that I think some of them they'd be happy about.
And some of the language in the dress code is just outdated, so they've scratched some of the language to get rid of it. The biggest thing is just simplifying it, making it more consistent, and really less confusing for everyone. So that is the purpose and the intent of it.
I had several things that whenever I was reviewing it, I came up with. It states on both of them district provided spirit shirts. as the spirit shirts that are allowed, or not district provided, district
Approved.
or KISD spirit shirt. My concern with that is you have a lot of families and you have a lot of teachers that get their spirit shirts through different avenues. I think if you make it mandatory that they are going to be getting a spirit shirt that the district has, I think you run into an issue of having to provide for those that can't afford it.
Or the other thing you come up, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, is back to that, those teachers going, well, wait, now is that ours or is that from somewhere else? And that, so maybe just is, I mean, it's not, you know, Wildcats from whatever college is Wildcats, you know, there's tons of them. But Kennedale, anything that says Kennedale Wildcats and it's green, and, I mean, that would be my
Part of that
thought.
comes with our branding and imaging that we were doing.
I think you're gonna step in it if you ask for
Yeah,
that.
so we may just have to just take that language out.
If you,
That's
even
fine.
if you wanted to nitpick it, you could say green, black, school colors, that keep it within the school colors, don't get picky about your green, but keep it within those school colors, so you don't have these purple shirts that say Wildcats or different things like that. But I think you have a lot of people that have invested, and the thing that a lot of parents complain about is these district shirts that the schools order, or the PTO or PTA order, they are ordered very cheap, and they shrink, they're uncomfortable. It's just, people have a preference. I think, I love the jeans and that, but I think that is going to raise kind of some eyebrows with that.
And that's, like I said, these are just recommendations, so it's easily taken out.
I've just written some notes for discussion and something to go back to the principals and you can tell them. But you might just say, it might be hard to determine if that was one from a district approved one or not, so.
I love the length of the fingertips for the shorts. I think that's, if you have a lanky kid, that's kind of, that's hard. That's
Having
really good one.
a daughter that we struggled, who was tall, that we struggled with this, that's, you know, something that I completely understand, that it's very difficult to find shorts for girls that meet certain requirements, so that's difficult.
For the pre-K through fourth, it would be nice to have that jumpers taken out, or put jumpers / dresses. Most people don't call dresses jumpers.
So language,
Yes, so if you could just say dresses or jumpers, because they don't sell uniform jumpers that much as dresses.
Can we-
Also,
Can we, just submit these to the to you in writing? Can we
I
do
think that would
that?
be, you know.
And then you get it back to the principals and then they just give us a formal proposal at the
and
next
then
meeting?
are they gonna give us a couple different ones to vote on? Cause
Right,
that's
right,
what.
that would-
you'll
that
run
would-
into.
or?
Yeah,
Well, if we all
If
have
they
different
don't.
views on it, then
yeah, let them send us send out a
So
unified.
I tell you, I like your idea of sending your concerns and then let us kind of let them look at it, and then they'll send it to me, and then
Let's get a unified code out there and you know, then we can go through and streamline once they got it. But just look at this one with the notes that you have here for your review, and send whatever notes into the principals, and you know, and if you want the public to, or whoever you want to, can send them whatever notes they want to. But let's let the principals make that decision. You know, they're the ones closest to the students and the parents, I hope.
Can I clarify two things? The spirit shirts, does that count as club shirts as well? Like
I believe anything that's supporting anything that's Kennedale ISD would be considered,
I guess make sure the
yes,
club
whether
says
it's
whatever
like
approval process, that
band,
the shirt's good, yeah.
you know, Spanish club, you know.
Student club.
And NBA, for.
And then, I'm glad you said that, because one thing that was asked was, we've got little football and little basketball, and, you know, like the little football teams would like to wear their jerseys on Fridays to support, but, you know, they're KYAs, but I believe that would be acceptable as well, because they're supporting, if it's spirit wear, they're wearing their jerseys, you know, on game day as well. I think that should be allowed. That kind of touches on yours and maybe some of yours.
The KYA ones.
Yes.
are you gonna let the cheerleaders wear their cheerleading uniform to school too?
If that's not.
You're
yeah.
opening a can of worms. I
Yeah.
see if you have a jersey, then you've got to allow it for the girls, and I don't think there's gonna be, when you're enforcing a dress code, having
I mean, if that's your uniform, oh, you mean the uniform for KYA?
You know, I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do is community outreach with our younger kids and making them feel included into what we're doing. And I don't see an issue with a little youth cheerleader wearing their uniform as long as it's school appropriate. It matches the skirt requirement that.
It's not going to. That's why I think if you just, it would be easier
But the high
to just
schools
say no.
don't match that either. They don't match that and they wear them, so we have to have some cohesiveness or.
We're probably gonna have to have some more discussion on this.
And the second clarifying question, on here it says add and remove, so I'm assuming add means acceptable and remove means unacceptable, because it says at the top, acceptable, unacceptable, because in the red it says add and remove.
So it says add, I believe that's language to be added in, and if it's removed, it's language to be taken out.
Maybe you can ask the elementary principals how they wanna handle that, if they
Okay.
wanna do jerseys and cheerleader skirts, or, I mean, I don't care, they're the ones that are gonna have to enforce whatever we do.
Whatever it is, they just need to.
And that was the biggest reason why I wanted the principals to review everything and then them bring suggestions, because they're the ones that deal with the dress code situations on the campus, and that's who it affects most, so.
Absolutely.
This whole discussion obviously revolves around discipline issues. I mean, the broader conversation that I think we need to be having is, do we have community consensus in our district is what we believe our expectations should be about discipline on our campuses? Are parents gonna say this, we believe promotes discipline? And if they do, what's the level of discipline they believe should be, is it appropriate for kids to, run the halls? Well, probably not. But I think we need to start having that conversation to elicit the public's, expectations of what they believe appropriate discipline on our campuses looks like. And if this is part of that, it'll be accepted. If it's not part of that, we're gonna have pushback. And I'm afraid we are missing that overall conversation, that we don't project an expectation of discipline on campuses, across the board, and I think we're missing something. We ought to engage the parents in that conversation.
Well, I think the principals are the front line, the principals and the teachers are the front line, that they're the ones that are actually enforcing all this.
Yeah.
So if
That would be my agreement too, is that they get the feedback. I mean,
and if they are, I'm assuming they're in agreement, or at least have spoken to the principal about this is what, this is why this child was sent to the office, or this child had to change their clothes, is because our policy is this and we're changing it. And I'm assuming that the principals are saying this, they're in favor of this, so they won't have as many discipline problems, or won't have as many questions about what is and isn't appropriate. I don't see an issue unless a parent has brought up something that I'm not aware of. Either saying that their child as a cheerleader should be able to wear their skirt or any other uniform, but you start getting into a situation where she's a cheerleader and wears that skirt. Well, there's a volleyball player and they have the shorts, and you don't want to get in there because it's a uniform. And I'd much rather just say, okay, the top is fine. Let's keep the bottom or what we have, the situation is, that's usually where the problem, most of the problems come in is to the bottom half. The top half is usually not that big of a deal. T-shirt or whatever uniform, or roll up your uniform, or a T-shirt underneath your basketball jersey, you don't have a problem. But you start getting into, especially the boy versus girl, boys usually have some type of covering. Girls, their uniforms usually don't, or much higher than what we consider standard. So I'd go down the chain of command, ask your principals, ask your teachers where those issues are. And if there's an issue, let's talk about it.
And I'm sorry, one more clarifying question. On the hoodies, it says we're adding KISD or solid hoodies, but then in parentheses it says hoodies must be off and not cover the head in the building. So I thought that was already a rule that they couldn't have hoodies. So by saying add, are we allowing it?
Allowing hoodies.
But the hood part is
Cannot
not,
be on in the
cannot be on.
building.
That's
You can't
that's
wear-
not what it says, it's hoods. Oh, never mind. Forget all that.
And obviously, the impetus or the goal here is to make the code consistent, easily enforced, and easily understood. So I think if the all the campus leaders get together and go through it and then present their final revision to us. I think that would probably, and then make sure they reach out and give their PTOs, PTAs, as much input as they can.
So when we had the community forums, you saw the info from the community
Right.
forums, those are the only ones that brought it up. It's more with the kids, the staff. There are a few parents that are pretty animate about some certain things, but really the staff, with the confusion on the staff's part of trying to enforce the dress code.
Right.
The principals with the amount of discipline that the dress code entails, and then the students obviously are not very, it's confusing to them, but it's also inconsistent.
Maybe if whatever they come up with, if they can, maybe we can post it on the web for a week before we approve the agenda for the next meeting. Give people a chance to get on there and give comments. Can we do
I believe
that?
the dress code is separate, so we can have that out there way ahead of time and let everybody review it, so I think that's not a
Yeah,
problem.
let's make sure we get that out there prior to it, you and I meeting for the agenda, and then make sure we have approved one with input. Does that make sense? Good. And that's
Okay,
not
so we're gonna post it on website, a week before,
it'll be 2 weeks before the meeting.
2 weeks before, and what are they supposed to, and they can read it and just kind of see where we're going?
And it'll have an email link for them to send
Okay.
comments and questions on.
I appreciate everybody's feedback, principals, taking the time to
Absolutely.
give staff.
Absolutely. We want it consistent.
Yeah.
Want it consistent. Got it up there, Speedy, right?
Got it.
Good. All right. Item 3 was the pay structure analysis for auxiliary staff. Everybody get a chance to look it over. I know we've gotten that.
All right, and I'll kind of brief you, we have new state financing that's come through with House Bill 3 that was passed through both and then approved by the governor. House Bill 3, we're still in the midst of trying to decipher and figure out what all the ramifications are for this. The first page that you have here is basically the annual increase in salaries and the history of it over I'd say the past 15 years at least. And you see where the increments have come from. We have substantially raised our teacher salaries. We are very competitive, but we have to continue to be competitive in the market that we're in. But our auxiliary staff is where we have a big part of our concerns is where their pay falls. And so the next few sheets, when you look at their auxiliary, we usually raise, their raises are in percentages where the others for teachers are in dollar amounts generally. So if you look at the next sheet, this was provided by Ms. King. She had done a lot of work on this, so I want to thank her for her efforts to evaluate this and break it down and do the research. So at the minimum, I'm just going to give you the summary sheet, and I don't want to hash through all of it, and read verbatim everything, but basically this is the summary sheets of where each of these groups are. The sheets behind it are broken down by categories. So the first sheet is food service. Okay, so if you want to look at the food service sheet with me, when you look at, it's broken into categories where the cook, the server, the manager of elementary, the manager of the high school, the supervisor. When you look at our minimum starting pay, our minimum range, where we start, our cooks and servers is in the green highlighted area. The region 11, which is our region that we are in, that is, the yellow is their minimum. Now, if you look at the manager and the manager at the high school, those are much more competitively. So the cook and the server in the red is one of those areas of need, I believe. Okay. And she looks at it, compares it to Arlington, Burleson, Fort Worth, Mansfield, and then it looks at also comparable districts in our size in Region 11, which is Castleberry, Lake Worth, and then to other districts our size outside of our region. And where they start, their minimum.
Okay.
Okay, so does that kind of help you understand? So once again, this is just, when we come back with salaries and structures and stuff like that in July, you'll have a better understanding of where we're coming at with some of this stuff, okay? So the next sheet, custodians and maintenance. Once again, when you look at the ones in red, those are areas of concern. When you look at our minimum compared to the region's minimum. Once again, you've got Arlington, Burleson, Fort Worth, Mansfield, our surrounding competing districts, and then the other two districts in Region 11 that are our size, and then the regions, the districts outside of our region, and where they start. So you see why those areas are in red, okay, and why they're being looked at. The next sheet is our paraprofessionals. This one is, paraprofessionals fall in different classifications. Our first category is para and P and instructional. And that one, if you look over to the right-hand side, about 10% below the region. And minimum on that one. But the area that we're the most concerned about is the clerks, the attendance clerks, elementary, middle school. You see the percentage over there where it's 19 and 20% below. So hopefully I'm kind of touching all this to help you kind of visualize what all those reports mean, and so you can analyze it on your own, okay? Without me having to go through every little detail of it.
We're comparing starting pay though to minimum average.
Our minimum compared to the minimum for the other, yes. Minimum starting pay, yes.
So theirs is the
Right.
Region 11 minimum average is
I'm sorry, I can't
Is
hear
that the minimum average for Region 11 is the starting pay? Average of the starting pay? Okay.
You're talking about the yellow category? Yellow, yes, that's their average minimum starting pay, and then our minimum starting pay in the green. Right.
Is there, I guess you said the July meeting, or August meeting, you're gonna have?
We'll have budget workshops, and we will start looking at salary structures and where we're looking at with our salary structures and all that.
So these are highest areas of turnover? Are these our highest areas of turnover?
The DIAG's what started this conversation. DIAG is one of our biggest areas of turnover, and I'm about to get to the DIAGs here in just a moment, but this was not, I would say custodial is one of our bigger areas of turnover. Maintenance would probably, and food service, you know, those they're auxiliary positions, and you know, those are our biggest areas of turnover.
And paras, trying to keep good paras.
Yes. But the clerks, we don't really have a big turnover in the clerks, but you know, it is pretty disproportionate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, if you'll go with me to the next sheet. This is the paraprofessionals. Once again, the clerks show up on here, the pay grade 5. You can see the disparity there and the percentage of disparity on the right-hand side. And we'll get to the diagnosticians, and this is what kind of prompted this conversation and brought the information to us. Because we have a, no, on the bottom, let me see, there it is. At the very bottom of the notes, if you look at this one, it says KISD diagnostician minimum pay exceeds Region 11 minimum pay. However, local district minimum pay exceeds our minimum pay. And our turnover rate has been 50 to 75% in the last 3 school years.
But do we know if that's all financial, or is it dissatisfaction with the job, or the process, or
That's-
systems?
There are other variables that come into play. But I think when we look at it, when we look at our minimum compared to the region, we're actually above it for the region. But when you start looking at the, you know, the big one here is Mansfield. And this is where we tend to lose quite a few too, is Mansfield. And the reality is, we are not going to be able to match what Mansfield pays. What we may be able to do is actually do a stipend in addition to something that we could possibly do here. But when you look at the other districts, we're very comparable with them. In fact, we exceed some of the other districts. So I think you're right, John. We need to find some other incentives that entice them to stay here.
And I suspect it's the workload or the lack of support they have. I suspect there's a lot of other factors that they feel isolated and are, and you're right, there has been some turnover, but I think it has to do with other structure, not necessarily pay. But pay is important, but I think a person who's happy and feels supported in their job is probably willing to work at it differently than a person who's unhappy with their job. And they're gonna look for every opportunity to find.
Are we doing any type of exit, any type of exit interviews with the people that are leaving?
We
Okay.
have all of that data, so we will be looking at that as well. All right, and then the last one was the assistant principals. Once again, the one area that we look at where we are in deficit would be the 5th through 6th grade, secondary and high school. Our elementary are actually, we're very comparable with what we're doing.
Do we have central staff on here? I see campus.
I'm sorry?
The central staff, central staff, was it looked at as well?
The clerks.
Campus and,
No, you're talking about campus
no, campus,
Administrator.
that central administration, do they compare them as well?
No, yes.
Some of the central administration, the paraprofessional is within the
Clerks.
study, but others, like the directors, coordinators, principals, are not, we're not. But I can't.
Full view would be good.
The question, are we receiving any more information about the breakdown, where it falls in admin, whether you're not supposed to use any new money to support admin increases? Have we got any more detail from PA on that?
75-25.
There's a 75-25 split, 75% for teachers, 25% for the support staff. When we look at our budget, can we see, that's new money. 30% of the new money has to go into those categories. Can we see those? I don't think it prohibits us from paying other resources in, but we better be spending those increases specifically on those projects.
And that was what was the concerns that when we first got House Bill 3 from the, and what looks like those, they did the runs that they do. What they were basing everything off of was the state average. Well, our revenues from taxes were exceeded what some of the other areas, so it originally looked like we were not, they originally had told us 1.4 million in extra revenue, and that was quickly becoming about 200,000. So there was a big disparity, but more templates and things have come out, we've been getting more information, so now it's looking better. So yes, we're gonna have to look very carefully at the percentages of what we're having to do, and that's all gonna be part of that workshop that we do with you in July. And we'll have more, it's still not all finalized yet, so we're still, we still have the safety and security mandates that I'm expecting coming through that haven't even been finalized yet, and what that's gonna do to budgets as well.
And can we confirm the recapture number? Because the budget assumes that we were paying 194,000 back, which we hadn't paid yet.
Zero.
I know it's zeroed out, but they're treating that as new money. It's not new money, it's money we had that we were gonna pay in, and they're saying we're giving it back to you. So I don't understand how that helps us.
Those are
I mean, that's the math game that's going on. And
Welcome to the state's finance.
Oh, I understand, and I just think we
solution.
need to be realistic about saying, oh, well, we got $194,000 to make. Well, no, we haven't paid it yet. So, I mean, it may not have been due if they had kept the formula the way it was, but, I mean, I think we need to appreciate the way they structured it. Isn't, I think they're saying, it looks like we're gonna lose, what, 8 cents, 11 cents on the M&O side? We'll be at 108 versus 117, around there. I mean, it's not accurate, but around there. That's a big hit.
The other thing that you have to take into consideration is we're now going off of current year values, where in the past, we've had to lag with projected values, and now we're going off current year. So that's going to be something we're going to have to be very cognizant of this year, because it may not be as comfortable this year as it may be going forward because of that differential. So those are the things and Mr. Adams will map.
Sounds
all
like
that out.
fun.
Back to this, I would just like to say,
All right.
we put a lot on our assistant principals, so this to me is is important because we ask them to be at a lot of things and do a lot of things. So that is a concern for
But we
me.
gotta get clarification, because you can't, maybe you can't use new money on principals if they're considered admin.
Well, that's why I wanted to say, but
Yeah.
this is concern to me.
These areas
As much
that
as
I'm
we're going
addressing,
through
the reason we're addressing this is because the focus is always on teachers and their pay, but the reality is we have other staff that we're gonna have to pay attention to as well.
35% support staff and 25% to teacher and other sources.
Basically, that's the information you asked for, and a quick synopsis there, and without going too much. If you have any other questions, or if you want to look through it and review it, and if you have questions, let's get together and I'll go through it with you. And we'll try to have more information for you in July. All right.
Okay, last two items, we'll go up to items B and C. Both of those items we'll hear in closed session under subsection 071 and 074. So I think we're gonna meet in here since there's no air conditioning back in the back.
Bear's office.
Yeah, so if we wanna go back there, we can just dismiss everybody, whichever you wanna do.
Dismiss, I forgot we're done.
Yeah, that's the last open session item, and there won't be any action there, I don't think, so. We'll just close when we come out of closed session, so y'all are welcome to get home.